All the recordings are on. Are you ready for this?
Let's do it.
Let's do it. So yeah, we're going to get a nice set of notes out of this. Let me let people in, and they'll be trickling in. All right, people are coming in. And hello, if you're just joining us, we're just getting going. And the way this works is we cannot see you, and that's just the way I like it, because I'm an introvert and I'm just having a chat with my friend Candace. But if you're in the audience, you can in fact interact with us by sending us emojis, and or if you, excuse me, if you go to the bottom right, you'll see the 9 dots stacked up on top of each other, and there is a Q&A tool. And in fact, I will pop the question that came in through the registration. I'll put that in there to model it if I can find it. So bear with me here a minute. Yes, I do make funny sound effects. Here we go. Can plateaued growth be a good thing? Here we go. Boop. So that's the one we received. And then, hi, Candace. It's been a minute.
Yes.
And I got to apologize again for the recording that my voice is so hoarse. I just shared this with you in the green room that my daughter just graduated high school. So mom got a little bit over enthusiastic. There was a little bit of shouting going on there yesterday. So that's what I sound like a frog.
No, you're all good. It actually is not bad, Astrid.
Oh, I'm just very self-conscious because I sound different to myself than I usually sound. I'm like,
okay,
gotta sound weird on the recording. That's okay. Well, I think people usually trickle in a little bit, but let's just get going and talk a little bit about just as a reminder why I reached out, because I got interested a few months ago in this question of how we built better businesses, like the tactics of building better businesses. And so I've been reaching out to all the people I love and admire who do this work, the tactical work of that, not sort of you do a bunch of things. You do high level strategy with organizations, but you also get into the weeds. And so I'm really stoked that you're here today and that we get to have a fireside chat among us. So talk a little bit about what you do, where you come from, and sort of set it up a little bit.
Yep. From Baltimore City, Maryland, in the US, and I am the founder of the VPI Firm, which stands for Vision, Performance, and Impact. It's a strategy and systems firm. Like Astrid mentioned, there are a couple of things. I'm also the founding executive director of B-City, and we're really focused on shifting the infrastructure around resourcing Black and Brown nonprofit leaders. And then as if I didn't, as if I had enough time to do another thing, I'm also the co-founder of EASE, which is a civic tech data cooperative designed to support communities in gaining ownership and economic upside from their own data.
And that's actually some work that we did together a few years ago, which is how we know each other, right? Yes. And I was so struck by your vision of saying, no, these communities just need to own the data about them.
Yes. And you and Zebras Unite were at the ground level in the mud with us, trying to figure out what this business model could look like.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And how is that going, coincidentally? Because that is not a common approach, right? I've been talking to people about the importance of data sovereignty for, I don't know, decades at this juncture. Mm-hmm. And it was just so, it was so amazing to see that just you had the vision for how this plays out in underinvested and disinvested communities. So maybe talk a little bit about that before we get to the revenue topic.
Yeah, so there are like two parallel tracks here. One is having the vision for it because of the patterns I had seen in my strategy work, in the nonprofit work. And so I'm more about what gets to exist, what else is possible, and then what are the vehicles or containers that that gets to exist in for that to happen. So I didn't come out the gate saying, I just want a 501c3 just because, or create a cooperative because it sounds like fun, which is, it's stressful. And we did a lot of, like, I don't want to glaze over the community. We spent a year and a half, 18 months, really building this with community. And we got philanthropic support to work out the business model with, like, doing business model sprints with community members and funders and organizational leaders. So it is a business that was developed directly from the conversations, focus groups, stakeholder interviews, events that we had in community. And so while I had the vision, like, it really became refined and clear through the conversations with the different stakeholders over a period of 18 months. And so it's doing well. I stepped back as an operator, and I'm on the advisory committee, and they just landed their first major contract with an institution. And so it's moving. There are
Awesome.
4 or 5 co-founders who are moving it forward.
That's awesome. Yeah, I remember one of the design sprints we did, talking to, like, some of the 4th graders, like some of the kids in the community, about what they felt about the like, big social media platforms owning their data, and they got it, like, babes, like, get it, they understand that there's something really messed up with other, like, people owning your data.
Yeah, so actually I wasn't even included in that time, so that's 2 years, I guess.
Right?
Yeah, 2 years just building it with community first.
Yeah, that's awesome. So let's pivot and actually talk about the work you do with businesses, and describe that a little bit, and what's been bubbling up there for you.
Yeah, so a lot of what we do is around root cause analysis, and really trying to figure out what is causing the symptoms that you're experiencing in your organization, in your business. And it wasn't until we started working, like, more deeply with accelerators and teaching strategy that it became more apparent. A lot of the work that we do in larger institutions and larger organizations, we started seeing some themes and some patterns. But we know that, if you're a startup business, or even if you're established and you're trying to break through a certain revenue ceiling, that you might not have the funds to pay for, or even the time to invest in, like, a 12-month engagement, which is our typical engagement. So we started looking at, okay, the leaders the entrepreneurs that we work with in these accelerators, they're not short on vision. Like, they're clear on what their vision is, they're clear on what their purpose is, but what was missing was the structure that they needed to really carry that vision. And so we started noticing patterns, over the course of the time of working with entrepreneurs, and the visible symptom or problem that they would see, and they would act on that and tell, the accelerators and incubators, like, hey, we need more marketing, or hey, we, need to work on our website, or we need, more leads. So they would talk about the symptoms, but they had no way to really diagnose what were the root causes behind those symptoms. And because that's been work that we have done for years, we came in and said, there's a huge gap in the traditional business advice and business accelerators around just, like, teaching more stuff, right? Like, just learn this business function, and okay, we'll help you with your marketing. But there was not a consistent way to truly diagnose what are the root constraints that are happening. And so sometimes I hear entrepreneurs all the time, oh, I need to work more. I need to, like, grind more. I need to, and it's just like always more. And the problem wasn't effort at all. Like, I need to post more. I need to sell more. I need to launch more. I need to, just do more. And it's like, it's not your effort. You're already giving your business everything that you have and some. So the disconnect is that you're not actually diagnosing the constraint. And so we created this system that would allow entrepreneurs to, in a very short amount of time, 45 minutes at most, to diagnose where the constraints were happening. And we what we identified is that revenue problems really boil down to like 4 factors. And it's, can you clearly name the constraint? Like what is like choking the business or not allowing it to grow? So can you clearly name that? Can you properly prioritize? So it's not just about saying, okay, here are all the things that are wrong, because then that's also overwhelming.
Yeah.
We hear all the time, I don't know what to focus on. I don't know what to do. So then can you properly prioritize what is the most high leverage next step for you to do that can unblock other things? And then are you adequately resourced to fix that problem? And then are you doing it in the right order? So this is why we don't believe revenue growth is about random activity, just doing a lot of things, because people do that and they don't see results. It's about being able to see the business clearly enough to know what is actually blocking your movement, what deserves attention first, what needs resources, and what order does the work need to happen in.
Can you talk me through an example of what that might look like in a business that you've worked with? I mean, obviously without naming names.
Yeah. So, for example, there could be a business that thinks that more leads, like I need more qualified leads, people who are interested in what we're offering. And so, but leads are a symptom. And so one of the questions that we start with is, so if you got more leads, if more leads came in, what does your sales process look like? Because if more leads come in, but your sales process is messy, your follow-up is inconsistent, your pricing is not clear, the delivery depends entirely on your founder, then more leads are not going to solve your revenue problem. If anything, it's going to expose the root causes of what else is happening in the business. Or for example, and this is like, especially for consumer packaged goods businesses, they might say, I need a larger retail order. But if that order requires more inventory, more production capacity, packaging, cash flow, timing, huge, logistics, the payment terms are not, aligned with when you need cash injection in the business, then your business cannot currently absorb that larger retail order. And so you might have the order and it looks like you grew revenue on paper, but now you're in a cash crisis reality because you cannot deliver on that retail order.
Right. Yeah, and CPG is so hard, right? Like when the business goes from, oh, I'm selling maybe a little bit online, or I'm selling at a farmer's market, and now the Target order comes in, or the, your local supermarket or whatever, and people just don't, you need capital to be able to fulfill those larger orders.
Yeah.
Right.
And I think, and this might, if I could pull this off, it might be able to answer the question that came in. What was that again?
Oh, the question was about like can plateaued growth be a good thing?
Okay, so I'm making the assumption that just basically a plateau is it's not moving anywhere. So that's kind of an oxymoron, plateau and growth.
I know, that's what I was struck by. Like, wait, what is a plateau?
But I want to address kind of I can pull out something there which is important, which might answer the question, even though it's kind of an oxymoron, which is a lot of times we talk about growth in this, like that is always good. Like there's a perception that growth is just always good. But like I mentioned earlier, growth can be, and more than likely will be, your business's stress test. And so a business can both die from little demand, but it can also collapse under demand that is not well financed, that is not well staffed or priced or structured to fulfill that effectively. So the question is not only like, how do we grow? The better question is, what kind of growth can my business safely absorb next?
Right.
And what people don't know, because we hear we hear about these like high startup, high growth startups, and it's like all of this excitement around high growth startups. But there's research, and I want to read a couple points of research that talks about the negative impacts of high growth. And so what the research calls it is premature scaling. So it's what happens when a business grows activity faster than it grows the structure needed to sustain that activity. So Startup Genome's research on more than 3,200 high growth tech startups found that 70% of startups scale prematurely and was the primary cause of failure. Then you have CB Insights from 2026 analysis of 431 VC-backed companies that shut down since 2023 because they ran out of capital. And that appeared in 70% of failures. And so again, ran out of capital is a symptom, right? And we want to get to what are the root causes. So when we look deeper, we see that in that same analysis, the cause included poor product market fit at 43%, bad timing at 29%, and unsustainable unit economics at 19%. And we're talking about VC-backed companies.
Yeah. Although I think in some ways those companies are the most misaligned, right? Like with the because it's the VC funding itself that's driving some of this, blitz scaling and blah blah blah, right? And they have this sort of rote, just throw more senior marketing talent at it, right? Like they're actually the symptom of what you're describing, just more activity of a certain kind, right? To get to the churn and to get to some of the targets, but they're fake. Like they're not actually sustainable in the long term, right?
So you look at the system around business as usual, and it is this very grind harder, throw all of this at your business without really thinking about and taking it slower to say, so plateau growth. So back to the question, it is actually statistically better. It's proven that slower growth companies are more sustainable than fast growth companies. They're more sustainable over the long term. So to kind of pick that question apart, yes, a slower growth method actually has you be more sustainable over time because that gives you the time to build the infrastructure that you need to absorb that growth.
Yeah, when I was sitting with that question, I also thought like plateaued growth, right? Like it's maybe one way to interpret it would be to say it's not growth at any cost, right? So what if plateaued growth means that I'm hitting, like those signs, 192 days without an accident? Like that's a good thing. That's a really good metric in a business. Or what if you have over time, you lower your churn rate of customers? And so you're not having to work as hard to maintain the same level of revenue because your customers are happier and you're not losing them, right? So that could be a way of sort of plateauing your growth, where you're making your revenue targets, whatever they may be, and if that's enough, if that's throwing off enough, as a member of a family office, Ania Ben-Ami, who has written a lot about how they use a revenue-based financing strategy for a lot of the businesses they invest in. And he said, like, what's wrong with a $50 million business? Absolutely nothing, right? Like, why do we keep chasing the $1 billion unicorn? And so this question of like, what's enough? Like, what's your goal as a business owner? I think is one that actually doesn't get asked enough. I mean, when I think about people who own businesses, like a lot of us, I know people who want to build something that they then sell. I mean, I've heard the strategy of, I'm going to have a tech startup. I'm going to make generational wealth from the sale of the tech startup. And then I can build the thing that I really want to build. Like I've heard that described. And then I also know a lot of business owners who just want to make a good living for the current generation and or maybe pass something on. If it's a family business, like maybe you want to pass it on to your children.
There are, I forget the term, but there are the majority of small businesses, especially non-employer businesses, meaning you don't have any employees. You're kind of just, you might have contractors, but you're the main one running the business. Many of them are and there's a term for it, I just can't remember, but many of them are essentially like need-based entrepreneurs. Like they didn't start a business, like maybe there's a passion there for it, but it really was because, or I think it's called like opportunity entrepreneurs.
Oh, okay.
Like, or no, opportunity is the smaller group. And so need-based entrepreneurs are the entrepreneurs who are just like, there aren't enough opportunities available to me. And so I need to create a business. Versus an opportunity entrepreneur is someone who like, they may be good. They may be financially, well already, or, their family is, but they see opportunities. And so they say, oh, I want to leverage this opportunity and create a business. So we also have to talk about like the origin from where the entrepreneur starts, that makes a difference in that sustainability as well.
So in your work, do you see a difference between those like different types of entrepreneurs in terms of how they're responding to the diagnostic and how they're able to then act on it? When
what's funny is because with the accelerators that we work with, we offer the diagnostic for free. And so, that can be a perception if they're not paying for a thing, like how valuable that thing is and their use of it. I would say that the ones who take advantage of the diagnostic, I would say 90% of the time, the ones who take advantage of the diagnostic are typically those like need-based entrepreneurs. The ones who are like have the tech startups and things like that, they don't take advantage of the diagnostic tool. We have worked with tech startups because we've done, beta testing and focus groups, et cetera. And so we know it's valuable to them and for their growth and diagnosing their constraints. But we see more of the like smaller businesses that are not considered high growth taking advantage of the diagnostic tool.
And then what's their experience with it? Like, how do they talk about some of the sort of the turnarounds that you have seen, if you will? Like how have people gotten unblocked?
Yep. So maybe just to give a little bit of context first. So we look at revenue through 6 pillars because it's not produced just by one activity. And so those 6 pillars are product or service positioning and value, marketing and lead generation, sales and conversions, delivery and client experience, financials and pricing, and operations and team. And so we're talking about the full landscape, of your business. And more times than not, so we liken it to going to the doctor, right? So you might know that your stomach hurts, but you don't know what's causing the pain. You might have some idea, but it's not until you get lab work done and the test done that you're able to pinpoint what exactly is happening. So that's usually the feeling inside of the diagnostic. They know once they're completing a pillar, like, oh, I know I might score low here, because they just understand like they're feeling symptoms in this area or they're feeling the pressure in that area. But it's not until they get the insights that they're saying, oh, this is what I need to do. This is what's causing it. Like, I know I feel the pressure, but this is what's causing it. So I always say it should not be a surprise, like how you kind of score in the diagnostic. It should affirm the pressure that you're feeling in each of those areas. But what it does differently is it gives you precision around what is happening. And then within the whole system, not only does it give you precision, then we help you say, what do you get to prioritize first? Because you're taking this full diagnostic across 6 pillars. It could be feeling, you could be feeling overwhelmed with the insight, but the system now says, here's what you prioritize. Spend the next 30 days doing this one thing.
Love it.
And so now you got to have a sequence on what to do and what not to do, because that's equally as important. What should you not be doing right now?
Man, I want to do it now. We were just talking earlier before we came on, like, oh, I've just finished this bout of traveling and I want to sort of double down on sort of like looking under the hood of my own set of businesses, the ones that I've co-founded, but also the sort of advisory and consulting work. And I suspect there'll be some really interesting learnings stepping through your diagnostic. I kind of want to do it now.
Let's do it.
Do some housekeeping. What are some of the common issues that you see? Like let's stay with the consulting business. What are some of the sort of common blockages that you see, and the common sort of priority things that people end up having to do coming out of a diagnostic?
I wouldn't say that there's a specific, there's not a common thing because the business and the business models are so very unique. And I think that's the value of the diagnostic tool, is that it looks at, and it's a whole system. It's the tool, and then there's the AI, there's a custom built AI system that helps you with the prioritization and sequencing. So those two combined are the diagnostic system. And so what I would say is, what people get clear on is the constraint I don't even have enough data to understand, where the business is and where the connections, where the root cause is. And I really just need to start collecting data first around certain areas in the business, so I can be informed about how to move forward, or looking at I thought I had a marketing problem, to get more leads, but what I actually have is an operations problem, because we have SOPs, but nobody's following it.
That part.
Because nobody's following it. When we look at our cash picture, we're actually spending more money on labor. And so because we're spending more money on labor, I'm thinking that, we're not making enough revenue. It's like, no, you're making enough revenue. You're just not keeping enough of it. And so before you start putting money into the marketing, you need to shore up your operations so that you don't blow it out when you get more customers and more demand. So it really depends, because people can, that same marketing issue that somebody can have could be operations. It could be your positioning. It could be your financials and pricing. We see a lot of that with consulting businesses, is that they are over functioning in their projects because, one, they might not know how to price their service, or especially if they are, if they are a purpose-driven consulting firm, they're just doing more. They're seeing I've been that's me. Hello, work with communities, and you really care about the work, and you just want to do so much to support them. And then now you're paying them. Work. You're no longer getting a profit from it because of all of the hours that you're putting into it. So it could be a number of things, root causes that show that.
I love that. Yeah, I think I'm guilty of that too. If I don't pay attention to how much I'm working, I'm like, wait, I have just reduced my hourly rate to $50. You're putting into, although my favorite new thing is, and I actually want to talk more about how you're using AI. My favorite new thing is to do some, you give my clients some custom AI prompts that they can use to work through some of the stuff themselves. And it is so efficient. I love it.
Yes.
Right? It's so generative for them. And it takes out all the scheduling bingo. I'm working with one founder team. It's just, they're in 2 different countries, and it'd be insane if summer is coming, right? People are traveling, taking time off, etc. I'm like, you know what? Here's the AI prompt. Just do this yourselves, and then send me your homework, and I can digest it and serve it back up to you. So I love the efficiency that we can now use these tools for. And I also need to be careful then, just because I'm faster at delivering the work doesn't actually mean that I need to be doing more.
So I get caught up in that. I get caught up in that. Yes, yes, I'll do that. Yes, that is, something to watch out for. And even with some of our larger clients, we'll create, if we're doing strategic planning or some type of executive strategy work with organizations, we'll create a custom AI tool specifically for their company. So it'll take their values, it'll like we can embed their employee manuals in it. So what gets produced is aligned with the company. And one of the things that we had to like go back and design for was that they would get like just in a rabbit hole in the AI tool. And then it was hard for them to synthesize all of the production of what it created. So we had to design, and because we create a user manual for all of the custom AI work, we create how to use it, what kinds of prompts to ask it. We develop different modes that they can use. And so we had to build in like a synthesis plan, like when do you stop? Like, how do you stop going down the hole and begin to synthesize what you've what you've gathered and what you've learned from it, so that you can actually move into action.
Yeah, I think that's the danger, right? Like I usually constrain my custom prompts by saying in no more than 10 questions. Like that's it. Like stop with the going down the rabbit hole. And then you still get people who want to add more and more and more. It's like stop, it's not necessarily, it doesn't get you better results, right?
Yeah.
But it does. And so do you find, what are you seeing in terms of how people are relating to those kinds of tools? Are your clients ready and excited about them, or is there some hesitancy?
They're usually, in every organization, they're split. There are people who are like, let's do it, let's use it. It will make us more efficient and effective. And then, they create some guardrails around using it, which is, we're not going to use it to generate our initial ideas. We're going to generate first, and then we'll use it to synthesize and condense and things like that. Then you have folks that are like, we should not use it at all, not for synthesis, not for anything else. Like, we should just not use it. And so then that brings up another conversation for the organization, which is like, what are our policies and procedures for how we're going to integrate AI? And what is that going to look like? But yeah, they're usually split.
Yeah, no, it's just, we were just talking about, your diagnostic framework, right? Which is complicated or complex, one or the other, or both, right? Like 6 pillars, all these different dimensions, right? And so having some AI support in walking your clients through it is so helpful. And I was just reflecting, if you just joined us, that I'm finding that very helpful too, with my work that I do with advisory work, where I use these frameworks and then teams can work through them themselves. But to your point, right? Like there's this very differential sort of excitement or lack thereof in how these tools land. I'm curious, like what do you have sort of a minimum size business that you work with, or maximum for that matter, in terms of revenue or employees? Or
so for the diagnostic tool specifically, because we have like 3 or 4 different client segments. So one of them being institutions and larger organizations, which we have a minimum revenue amount for them. So it depends on the client segment. But for the tool itself, so right now, when we piloted and beta tested and done focus groups, we've worked with organizations or entrepreneurs who had about 50,000 in revenue a year to those 5 million in revenue.
Okay.
And it was useful for every stage. When we worked with an accelerator, this particular accelerator had pre-revenue entrepreneurs. And so, we just cautioned that there might be a number of things that are like, quote unquote, scored low, but use this as your action map, your action plan for, how to move forward in your business. So it really works across, like we've had government contractors, CPG, consultants, creative agencies. Like it works across industry and sector and business model. And I think that's really the value of it.
Yeah. Yeah, that's so great. Like I can't wait to try it myself now because we were just talking about, how summertime is a good time to actually do some housekeeping in your own business.
Yes.
And I was just thinking about that in the context of one of my clients where I'm doing some of this sort of more strategic advisory work around their business and what's next. And I thought, here's another tool to maybe use with them, or refer them to you, right? Like how does that work for you? Like how do you partner with other service providers? Are there many? Do you see other people working in this way? Because I've had the same impression that a lot of accelerator programs are not very thoughtful about the resources that they bring to their cohorts. And I'm sort of curious about that market in general. It could be such an interesting multiplier, right? To get the sort of actionable information to businesses.
Yes. So that's actually that's our main go-to-market strategy, is working with entrepreneur support organizations, or ESOs, because that way we get it to a lot of entrepreneurs at once and get them using it. But then there's the diagnostic system is really about intelligence for the entrepreneur support organization. And so now they're able to look across their cohort or across multiple programs or across their portfolio of their VC backed accelerator. They're able to look and say, what are the consistent constraints that we're seeing across growth stage or startup stage or industry type. Now they can start looking at aggregated results from the diagnostic tool, and they get a baseline result, and that result informs them, okay, here are some of the things that you need to think about for resource allocation. Like what workshops are really going to be important? Don't just give marketing just because it's the thing to do. Based on this cohort, what is the workshop that is most needed based on what they're saying their constraint is? What also helps is that because of the results in the system, they can also give it to their mentors. So sometimes we hear complaints about mentors that they're hit or miss with their support and their advice. And then most accelerators and incubators do not have a consistent way to support mentors and how they support their entrepreneurs. So now here's a system where they get the results from the diagnostic tool. So now that mentor can say, okay, I see exactly where your constraints are and where you need support. And either I can decide I don't have the knowledge or expertise to help you in that area. And so maybe there needs to be a different fit of a mentor, or they do have the expertise and they can zero in on how to support that organization. And then through the licensing structure, we also provide these insight analysis reports for funders and investors around why these particular resource investments are important for this cohort, because this is what the data is showing around how businesses are being constrained in their growth.
Are you finding, what kind of accelerator and incubator programs are most receptive to your offering? Because they're in such a natural position to be the conduit for this practical business intelligence for the businesses they're serving.
Yeah, so more accelerators that are focused on like place-based entrepreneurs, because that kind of lends itself to impact-driven entrepreneurs, purpose-driven entrepreneurs. So accelerators who understand that impact is important, that understand investing in place where they are is important. Those entrepreneurs, those ESOs, entrepreneur support organizations, are more receptive. I would say in our conversations with like venture capital firms or organizations, the main selling point for them is the kind of insight analysis that are directed towards the investors and the funders, because they struggle with being able to prove why the investments are important and why they're needed, because they have it, even with giving, hundreds of thousands of dollars into some businesses, they have a hard time getting data from them. And so they're just not getting quality data, and they're not able to report on that information. But because the diagnostic tool is a direct benefit. Like when the entrepreneur takes the assessment, they get a direct benefit versus some other, like if they are asked to do a survey, that survey goes into a report. They don't know what happens to it. So there's a built-in incentive for completing this diagnostic tool because they get immediate value from it.
I love that. Are you finding that accelerators and incubators or even VC funds, I mean, if they're small enough, are they able to afford you? Are they able to pay?
Yeah, they're able to pay. I think one thing that we learned, because this is a relative, we just opened licensing 2 months ago. And so we've landed 2 licenses already. But in the conversations prior to opening up licensing, one thing that we learned, right? Because as an entrepreneur, you always have to be learning for what the market says that they want and need, and that you have the capacity to deliver on. One of the things that we learned early on is that the diagnostic tool is great at finding constraints and things like that. But what is needed more so for entrepreneurs and the organizations that support them is, how do we help them prioritize and sequence? Because that is the main blocker. Like, what in the world do I do first? I'm just feeling pressure from all over. Where do I focus my time and energy first, second, and third? Which is why we built the custom AI tool to help them take the results from the diagnostic and then help them prioritize and sequence based on the highest leverage move.
Man, Candace, I wish we had a way to get you here to Oregon to work with some of the state agencies. I'm just thinking about my friend Amy, who also came on a virtual fireside. She does a lot of work in food system space and working with ag producers and food producers. And we were looking at an RFP that the Oregon Department of Agriculture has issued, but they have such specific ideas about how technical assistance should be delivered. And it is like, it's on another continent from where you're talking. It's like caught somewhere in the 20th century way of thinking about, direct contact hours with these, farm level businesses, blah, blah, blah. And they would so benefit from your approach. But how do you think about bridging that gap? Like these agencies who mean well, right? And they have money, right? Like these are lucrative RFPs if you can get them, but then you're sort of artificially constrained into, oh, now this is the way we want you to deliver the technical assistance, when something like your diagnostic with AI support would actually probably be way more suited to how these businesses actually function.
Yeah. So part of our, like, embedded in that go-to-market strategy with licensing with institutions is, like, we're really doing an education campaign as well, because they just don't know what they don't know, right? And especially on an institutional level, some of them have never started a business before. So they're just kind of looking at what they imagine best practice or trends to be in institutions. And it becomes this like systematic groupthink of what businesses need. And so everybody just follows suit. Like, oh, we should, you should create a business plan, and then you should do the business model canvas, and that, it very this robotic, way that it, and because they don't know how to service multiple business models, it becomes this very cookie cutter process. So part of it is educating them on like what really gets in the way, like showing them the data, connecting it to it being about being able to diagnose your constraints in real time based on your capacity, your specific business context. So many folks think that you can't have an offering that can address different business contexts, but with the invention of AI, it makes it that much easier to categorize things and to provide nuance and contextualized support for different business model types and geography, and and just a whole other list of things that are specific to certain businesses.
Yeah, I think there's a huge need to do some of that education, right, of these intermediary agencies and programs, government programs that could be so beneficial to the next generation of entrepreneurs. but where there's some really old and crusty thinking getting in the way, right? Because it's hard for businesses to find you directly, right? I mean, how do you cut through the noise on social media to make yourself stand out? Do you have a golden bullet, a silver bullet for that?
No, and this is actually, so we use the diagnostic tool on ourselves, right?
How's that? Oh yeah, I was going to ask you, like, how's that going?
Yeah, so we used it on ourselves, and we did not have, what we identified was that we don't, because we put a lot of money into marketing programs like understanding paid ads and all the things, and that costs a lot to get visibility. And so we realized that we didn't have a marketing issue at that point. We had a cash flow constraint because we were putting in, and marketing is not a, you just put an ad out and people come. Like, no, it's a long game and it's a long process. And so we realized, okay, if the root issue right now is both a cash flow constraint, and we see that when we do delivery, and we look at that pillar of delivery and client experience, we excel really well there. That had us look and say, okay, well, we have these institutional relationships from the work that we've done with institutions. Like, that's been our main client segment. So why are we trying to do a one-to-many right now and invest a lot of money there when we could just build out a licensing program for the institutional clients that are already warm, that's not going to cost us a lot of money, and get it out that way, build out a profit margin that allows us to reinvest into and save the money, that the profit that we get from the institutional clients and the licensing, save that to we get to a certain threshold. And then we can say, once we make this threshold or save this amount, then we can do a marketing approach to one-to-many, because we'll have the cash flow system to do that.
Oh, I love that. So you're basically tapping your existing networks of what used to be these more one-off, larger strategic engagements to now say, here's a licensed product.
Yeah.
That is actually good for the communities or the entrepreneurs that you're already serving. I love that. And then that builds you the runway to then tap into other market segments.
Yeah. I mean, we were really passionate about, like, all the businesses need to know about this. And we because, if you're in an accelerator, like, not all businesses are in accelerators.
No.
And so we wanted to, get this out to a lot of folks. But once we had to look at our reality in our business and say, what is the most high leverage move? Yes, we want to do that, but that is not what we can focus on right now.
Yeah, I love that discipline. I'm very inspired by your discipline to apply this to your own business. Like, I might come knocking on your door saying, help, I'm going to need diagnostic here in pretty short order to optimize some things around the work that I do. This is just so awesome. I want to revisit the question about sustainable growth. Like, what do you see entrepreneurs are interested in? Like, I feel like you have your fingers on the pulse of how people are growing businesses in this moment. What are some patterns that are sort of leaping out at you? Like, we talked about the needs-based and opportunity-based businesses. What do you see? Like, are there any, is there, like, it feels to me, for example, so one example is, with the USAID layoffs, like, all of a sudden you have all these people who understand economic development in the global south and whatever, and now they're all unemployed, right? Like, massive layoffs. And so I've seen, like, in my social feeds, for example, people who are reinventing themselves as consultants, like as social impact consultants. And then you see the people who are catering to, here's how to be a social impact consultant. I'm just curious, like, what are you seeing? Like, what kinds of businesses are people wanting to build in this moment?
I think because of the network that we have, we see all different types of businesses. For example, this woman was laid off. She invented something with curtains that, and she's been sitting on this idea for a while, just never moved on it. something with how to like put up curtains. I don't want to talk too much about it, but so she invented this thing. And so now she's just like, okay, I guess I have the time and the space to like really focus on what this looks like. How do I get this manufactured? How do I, get this out there? I've seen another woman, and these are women probably in their late 50s or 60s. Right? Another woman who has been teaching sewing for a while, just like as a hobby, but now has these very kind of unique religious-based like patterns that she started to see a demand for, but she doesn't have, the capacity to really grow it. And so now she's looking for partnerships and, vendors with manufacturers who can, so supporting her. Like we see all types of business models and entrepreneurs who, are in certain things. I'm like, I've never even heard of that before. Like I have to do research on how does that business model work? I've never even heard of that. So there's not of course, yes, a lot of consultants. And that is going to be interesting because we do see, a number of like services and offerings being built for those specific consultants. But like there's a difference between having knowledge and expertise and packaging that inside of a business. It's a huge transition and learning curve. And it's not just about your branding and your marketing, right? Like getting a website and telling people that you're here. So yeah, we've seen things across the board.
Yeah, no, I'm always intrigued when people have these sort of niche experiences and then just blow that up into a business, and you go, that's a business, who knew? And can be very, very successful at it, right? I just met somebody whose family company manufactures and fabricates all kinds of conveyor systems, for getting commodities onto trains and into silos and into ships. I'm like, I guess somebody had to figure out how to get all the corn that gets grown into the container ship. But until you hear it, it's like, oh, that's a specialized business. These conveyor systems. Duh, of course.
Yeah.
And then I also recently read about a woman who, she was making an interesting argument that takes me back to the revenue question. Is she was saying how AI had helped her basically do some testing of her idea. So I think we were talking about the needs-based entrepreneurs, and of course, if you're laid off, then your need just exploded, right?
Yeah.
But if you're even just contemplating a career change, right, or you've been sitting on an idea that's sort of been nagging at you for some time, but you don't have the confidence or courage to step out. She was making this interesting argument that with AI, she was able to do some market testing and do some like sort of quick and dirty builds that helped her collect the data. To then be confident to say, no, actually, that can be a business, and I'm ready to quit my job. So I thought that's interesting too, how people are finding these transition pathways now.
And we created the reference guide, right? So I mentioned 6 pillars. I didn't go into, they almost kind of speak for themselves, but it's a whole system. But we created a reference guide that I think becomes extremely useful for entrepreneurs, whether you're just thinking about a business or your already established business, but starting to understand how do all of the functions connect. Because if you go to a business course or accelerator, et cetera, like we mentioned, you kind of learn those in silos. And I think what this guide does really well is helps you take it a step further to begin to think about, how do I start to think about root causes that could show up as I'm growing my business, or if you already have a business, how do I separate the symptoms that I'm feeling from the root causes? You're able to now locate your specific revenue issue within the 6 pillars. So maybe you don't get the precise diagnostic, because that's what happens if you take the diagnostic tool, but at least the reference guide gives you an idea so that you can start identifying where is this issue showing up as it relates to these 6 pillars? And what might I want to, when I like look through the guide, what feels like the most pressure in this particular pillar?
Mm-hmm.
So then you can start thinking about what might I fix first based on the pressure that I'm feeling, and what might need to wait. So if people have been telling me I need to start posting more on social media and all that stuff, but I'm feeling the pressure here most, then that's probably your indicator that that's where you need to prioritize and focus, and then start thinking through, how might I sequence this? So I think that the reference guide does a really good job of just like getting you in the mindset, getting you primed for thinking in that way. There are people who are DIYers, so like take that and start to figure out your own path. But then there's the diagnostic tool that gets really into depth. And I think you just posted the guide.
I put the link to the guide in the chat, that your assistant shared. And then if people want to access the diagnostic tool, is there a price that you can share, or does that just
it's
vary?
Linked.
It's in there.
It's linked on the guide.
Awesome. Yeah, it's interesting, in my work sometimes, like I get so many people who just want to quote unquote pick my brain, and I don't do that anymore. So I now have a paywalled calendar where people can sign up. And then I'm very happy to share my expertise once we have found a time. And more often than not, I mean, one pattern that I saw in those many, many conversations is that people haven't taken the time to articulate to themselves some of the fundamentals of their business. And so I actually ended up developing an online course that's sort of self-paced, self-taught. And all I do is, I mean, it's so basic, but it's so necessary. It's like I talk people through the social business model canvas. That's it, with a little bit of additional resources, including an AI guide that will prompt you to think a little bit deeper about each of the sections. And I mean, the social business model canvas, like any business model canvas, has been around for decades. But it can be really hard for people to just self-actualize and say, oh yeah, let me grab that, right? I can't tell you the number of people who say, oh, do I need to write a formal business plan? Nobody writes business plans anymore. Like, please, is it the 1990s? No, it's not the 1990s. We don't need any more business plans.
There's some financial institutions that still require that if you're looking for loan debt financing, still require you to have a business plan.
Yeah, it's true. I mean, yes, and that's a good use of AI. I'm not sure. There's a question. Can we get the links referenced again? I hope. Can people see the chat? Can you give us a thumbs up if you can see the chat, or a thumbs down if you can't? I will send out the links afterwards. So, but if I'm not seeing any reactions, that happens. But we'll get them out. We'll get them out. What I'll do is after we wrap up here in a few minutes, I usually send out I do a little summary, AI generated mostly on my Substack, and then I'll also send out a blast with to anybody who registered through Luma, and so people can catch up that way.
Okay, sounds good.
So that's that may be just a what's the word I'm looking for? Just an artifact of how I set up the webinar. People may not be able to see the chat in the way that I thought they can. Wow, well, this is fun. I am now inspired to do some housekeeping in my business.
Yay.
And I want to talk to you more about all this and see how it goes, with the tools we can create for more businesses, create sustainable growth for themselves, no matter why. Like, I don't, there's so many reasons why people build businesses, but I just want them all to succeed. And so I was really, very excited about chatting with you today about the getting revenue unstuck and unblocked. So we'll make sure people get the guide, and hopefully they'll sign up for the diagnostic.
Awesome. And part of my why too is, like, sometimes I'll hear from entrepreneurs or the organizations that support them, like, well, can't entrepreneurs figure it out? And I said, it's not that entrepreneurs can't figure it out. Like, we do all the time, but at what expense? At what expense are we figuring it out, and the time that it takes to do that, and the money wasted? Like, that's more of my concern, is And we sometimes wear this expense as a badge of honor. And it's usually at an expense of our mental and physical health, our relationships. So it's not just about let's grow your revenue, but like how
Yeah.
do we how do we think about who we are, who we be, who are we becoming, as we're growing these businesses. And we don't have to wear this like hustle mentality as a badge of honor. We can actually do a slow growth method that takes care of ourselves, takes care of our family, our communities, and grow in a way that's sustainable.
Yeah, amen to that, right? Like, I mean, yeah, why have it be hard? Like, why can't we have some ease for entrepreneurs who are building these businesses, right, for themselves and their families, and also because they're just producing interesting goods and services that the world needs. So, well, my friend, on that note, I think we've done it. We've chatted for an hour. It's just all too easy to do. And
I was about to say, we could go on forever.
We could go on, and yeah, let's maybe conspire how we can merge some of these tools. Like I definitely want to introduce you to Amy and some of the work she's been doing with some of the local agencies, because there's just something really messed up about how some of these agencies are thinking about technical assistance when there are tools like and services like what you've been creating. So more
I
on
look
that.
forward to that.
Awesome. Well, I better get back to my family and the graduation celebration. So
yes. All right. Take care. Thank you all for listening. Thank you for having me, Astrid.
Yeah. Anytime. Take care. Bye.
Yeah.